This is your lecture number 2, related to your financial markets and institution course. We are in this lecture going to talk about interest rates. You all are very much aware about the interest rates. Interest rate is a variable that is the most watched variable in the world. Every person, be it is a businessman, an investor, or a household, a student, media, everybody looks at the interest rates, and they are very, very closely watched in, like, rates which are considered to be the decision variables. Whatever investments you make, whatever uh, planning you have for financing or finance and investments in your businesses, or even the degrees that you are doing, or even the education you are spending on, for everything you consider interest rates. And as I have already mentioned you that we are going to talk about and we are going to understand these interest rates from a conventional economics point of view. I have already mentioned you all guys that you should have a very clear cut idea that according to Islam, this interest rate is not allowed. Interest rate in any form or in any way is not allowed. Be it is a very small amount or a very large amount, no amount, none of the amount is allowed. Even for the single amount is like that, like, even a very smallest amount is like that, that you wage war or you stand against Allah. So it's a very, like, Islamically, religiously, it is not allowed. And we will be talking from the conventional economics point of view. We will be discussing this from the conventional economics perspective, and we shall be trying to see, like, that what conventional economics says about this. But according to religious understanding, according to Islamic understanding, and being Muslims, we should be very clear on it that whatever the interest rate is charged or paid or received or facilitated is not allowed in Islam. So you should be very clear on it. I'm sorry. You should be very clear on it that how, like, that Islam is very much, like, in Islam it is very much forbidden. We will be talking about. Do you know, like, why interest rate is not allowed in Islam? Will anybody, like, want to shed some light on it? Any idea? I'm not a student of Islamic economics, nor I am any mufti to give you any fatwa. But like, any just basic understanding, if you could discuss about that, whether why do you think that interest is not allowed in Islam, or why, what could be the reason? Because and like all the instructions and injunctions in Islam are not without reason. They have got very good reasons, uh, and all of them are very much in the favor of the people. Like, they are not against their uh, interest in the sense, like, their benefit. That they are all for their benefit. So do you know any idea, like, why? What do you think about it? That why interest rate is not allowed in Islam? Uh, Interest rate in Islam is about, like, Islam generally discourages interest rates. There must be very a lot of different reasons as well. But as I told you that I am not a student of Islamic economics, nor I am mufti to give any fatwa about the interest to be halal or haram. Like, I'm just telling what exactly plainly I understand about this. Islam understands, and very rightly understands, that the money is not a commodity. Why? Because money does not have got direct demand. Like, say, for example, if you are hungry and you have got a lot of money in your pocket, you can't satisfy your want of hunger. You cannot eat money. If you want to wear clothes, you don't have got any clothes shop around you, but you have got a lot of money, a lot of notes that you actually are carrying in a briefcase. You cannot stick those notes on your body to cover your body. So money is not a commodity. Money is not something that actually has got its own as a status as a commodity. So it should not be traded. Money actually, as your conventional economics also says, that money actually has got indirect demand. Money does not have got direct demand. You do not demand money for money. You only demand money for, why do you demand money?
For purchasing a commodity.
Yes, for purchasing other commodities like food, clothes, shelter, computers, and a lot of things basically that you buy with them. You want to use that money to buy something else. You don't use money or take money for the sake of money. You keep money just because it's a very good store of value, but you don't, like, you can't use that money directly for any purpose. For any purpose, I tell you, for any purpose, this money cannot be used directly. For every purpose, you have to exchange it with goods or commodities or services or something. So this is what basically is a basic understanding of it. So you might discuss this with other Islamic scholars and the people who study Islamic economics. They would tell you a lot of reasons that why interest rates should not be allowed in a country, because that interest rate unnecessarily increase the price of the commodities. And this interest is always, like, causes trouble. Yamna, do you want to say something? Yamna Reis?
सर आपकी वॉइस नहीं क्लियर आ रही, इससे जस्ट
All right, आपके पास सबके पास नहीं आ रही clear, like, or is it something?
सर क्लियर.
So I was telling you that interest rates are among the most closely watched variables in the economy. When they move, they are reported, because for everyone, whatever the decision he or she makes, that depends on that what kind of interest rate he is paying and what kind of interest rates he could get. Like, say for example, when he will be having some kind of transaction or some kind of investments. I'll be telling you what does this particular sentence mean a bit later. So they all affect, when we say the interest rates affect personal decisions, such as whether to consume or save. Like, say for example, being economic students, you would have definitely learned about deferred consumptions. Does anybody know about the deferred consumptions? Like some of the consumptions that you have, you defer it for the future. You don't do it today. So the consumption that you make today is the consumption that you do, like, you buy the things today. And some of the money that you don't consume today, you save it for tomorrow. That is called deferred consumption. And what actually encourages you to save? आप ये तो बता सकते हैं कि क्या चीज ऐसी होती है जब आप सेविंग इंक्रीज करते हैं और कंजम्पशन डिक्रीज करते हैं? What happens when you increase your saving and reduce your consumptions?
सर फ्यूचर में और ज्यादा कंजम्पशन करने के लिए.
That is very correct. Like, that is deferred consumption. But why? What actually makes you save? Like,
फ्यूचर में रिस्क को अवॉइड करने के लिए.
All right, that is also a fair point. What else? Any other point you want to make, that what actually encourages you to save more? Yes,
when
Tajul?
interest rate increases, sir.
Yes, very good. That's what actually I wanted to hear. Like, and whatever factors the other people were saying, basically they were all correct as well. Of course, you want to finance and you are actually want to remove future uncertainty, so that is why you save. But generally, saving increases when interest rate increases, and saving decreases when interest rate decreases. So when the saving increases, consumption decreases. When saving decreases, consumption increases. So saving is dependent on the interest rates, so as the consumption. Consumption is not directly dependent on the interest rates, but since saving is dependent on interest rates, so the consumption is also dependent on interest rates. And whether to buy a house, like, say for example, if you want to buy a car and you go to the bank and you want to get it financed by the bank, आप एक बैंक में जाते हैं और आप बैंक से फाइनेंस करवाना चाहते हैं कार, तो क्या आपको फाइनेंस करवानी चाहिए कार? कैसे डिसाइड करेंगे कि आपको फाइनेंस करानी चाहिए कार या नहीं करानी चाहिए फाइनेंस? या अपना घर फाइनेंस बैंक से करवाना चाहिए कि नहीं करवाना चाहिए? How would you decide that the banks, you should go to the bank to get your car or house financed? How a family or household decides about it? Do you want to answer this question? As we have,
अगर हम हाउस अगर परचेज करते हैं तो हम उसके फिर फॉर द लाइक कमिंग इयर्स में फिर हम उसके मॉर्गेज पे करते रहते हैं.
yes. So how do you
like,
decide about कि आपको mortgage पे करना चाहिए कि नहीं करना चाहिए?
Depending upon the interest rate जो हमें
Very good.
by the time में करना पड़ेगा, like बहुत ज़्यादा पड़ जाएगा या हम कर सकते हैं नहीं.
वेरी गुड। देखिए, सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट बात यही होती है कि आपका इंटरेस्ट रेट कितना आपको पे करना पड़ेगा। आप एक कार फाइनेंस कराने के लिए जाते हैं, कार की ओरिजिनल वैल्यू है 1 मिलियन या 2 मिलियन या 3 मिलियन, और आप उसके ऊपर एक्स्ट्रा कितना पैसे आपको देने पड़ेंगे, कितने अरसे में देने पड़ेंगे, जाहिर है उसका भी टाइम की आपको जो है वो मैनेजमेंट करनी पड़ेगी। और इसके अलावा आपको ये भी देखना पड़ेगा, देखिए आमतौर पर लोग जो कंपेयर करते हैं वो ये कंपेयर करते हैं कि इंटरेस्ट रेट किसके, जो रेट है वो किस तरीके से बढ़ रहा है और उसकी कार की वैल्यू या घर की वैल्यू किस तरीके से बढ़ रही है। अगर मिसाल के तौर पर एक घर है 10 लाख रुपए का, जिसकी आपने जो है वो 1 साल में पेमेंट करनी है, और आपने वो पेमेंट करनी है 12 लाख रुपए, लेकिन अभी आप वो घर अगर खरीद लेते हैं तो 1 साल के बाद वो घर हो जाता है 15 लाख का। तो आप 2 लाख रुपए उस पर इंटरेस्ट देंगे, लेकिन 3 लाख रुपए आपको एक्स्ट्रा जो है वो उसके बाद बेचने से मिल जाएगा वो घर, जस्ट फॉर द सिंपल कैलकुलेशंस। तो interest rates are the most closely watched variables when you buy a house, when you buy a car, and similarly when you make investments. How do you think interest rate is related to the investments in the stock markets? अगर आप एक स्टॉक मार्केट में जाते हैं, शेयर खरीदते हैं, तो आपका इंटरेस्ट रेट उस शेयर खरीदने में क्या रोल प्ले करेगा? I was asking this question that why, how interest rate affects the investments in the stock market. Okay, when you are not investing in the stock market, or when you are not investing in shares, you invest in bonds. When you don't invest in bonds, you invest in shares. When the interest rates on bonds is low, when you are getting low interest rate from the banks or the bonds, you make more investment in the stock market. When you make more investments in the stock market, you increase demand for shares. When you increase demand for shares, you basically, that when the demand increases, the price of the share increases. So the stock market goes up. So Faiza, are you able to connect the dots? कि
Yes, sir.
अगर आपके पास इंटरेस्ट रेट मार्केट में कम होगा तो लोग बैंक में पैसे नहीं रखवाएंगे, स्टॉक मार्केट में रखवाएंगे, राइट? और जब स्टॉक मार्केट में रखवाएंगे तो स्टॉक मार्केट में जब शेयर की प्राइसेस, जब शेयर की डिमांड बढ़ेगी तो शेयर के प्राइसेस बढ़ेंगे, क्योंकि लोग बैंक में नहीं रखवा रहे हैं। अगर बैंक में इंटरेस्ट रेट ज्यादा हो, देखिए बैंक में इंटरेस्ट जो है, बैंक की जो सेविंग्स हैं वो सेफ हैं। आप, इट इज अ वेरी सेफ इन्वेस्टमेंट टू हैव योर मनी एट द बैंक, but keeping the same money in the stock market or just investing the same money in the stock market is risky, and you take only that risk when you basically have got higher return as compared to the banks. If you are somehow able to get good return from the banks, you will definitely not be going to the stock market, you will going to the bank for investments. All right, so what actually I'm trying to prove, my point, what point I'm trying to prove here is that interest rates play very important role in all of your economic decisions, because for all of your decisions, interest rate, if interest rate is not the direct cost, it is always an opportunity cost. If interest rate is not a direct cost of your investment or your planning or decision or business, that would definitely be an opportunity cost. Opportunity cost means, like, say for example, if you are buying a plant, say for example, you have got 100,000 rupees and you are buying a plant with that, and that plant is going to give you 5% profit every year. But if the same 100,000 rupees you keep at the bank, if say for example, the bank pays you more than 5%, so it will not make sense to buy that plant, because that plant is going to pay you less than what you can get from the bank. So that return on the production of the plant is, and like, that interest rate is an opportunity cost for the plant investments. I hope I am able to make my points here. Like, if you don't get this, please let me know. So interest rates also affect economic decisions of businesses and households, such as whether to use their funds to invest in new equipments for factories or to save their money in a bank. All right. So this is a basic introduction. So perhaps you might realize that how important these interest rates are in making all economic decisions. All economic decisions are based on this basic calculations of interest rates. Whenever you have interest rates, whenever you're you have got interest rates available in the economy, you basically there are opportunities available for making investments and getting returns on it in form of interest rate. You always compare your investments, your decisions with that particular kind of money. Like, say for example, your families are investing quite a lot of money on your education. every month, every week, and every day. They are paying a lot of money for your education. Now, if you compare this investment with the bank, like what if they were keeping or depositing that money, whatever money they are spending on you, at the bank? आप लोगों ने कभी इस बात के बारे में सोचा है कि जितना पैसा आपके घर वालों ने हर महीने, हर साल, हर वीक आपके पैसा आपके एजुकेशन पे लगाया है, अगर वही पैसा वो आपके एजुकेशन में ना लगाते, बैंक में जमा कराना शुरू कर देते? लाइक से फॉर एग्जांपल, आपकी नर्सरी में आपको उन्होंने फी पे करनी थी 20,000 रुपए, और उन्होंने 20,000 रुपए की आपकी फी पे नहीं की, बल्कि उन्होंने वो 20,000 रुपए बैंक में जमा करा दिए। फिर अगली दफा उन्होंने फी पे करनी थी 20,000 रुपए, उन्होंने वो 20,000 रुपए पे नहीं किया, बल्कि उन्होंने उसको जो है वो दे पुट दैट इनटू द बैंक। सो आपका क्या ख्याल है, लाइक वुड दैट हैव बीन मोर बेनिफिशियल फॉर देम, और is it more beneficial to actually make investments on you people, like they are actually continuously spending money or investing money in you, and what kind of return are you going to get, and what would have happened if they were depositing the same money what they are paying for your fee and your all other educational expenditures, and if they would not have made these all expenditures and they would have kept that at the bank? What would have happened? Like, what do you think, like, how do you compare these two kind of scenarios? The scenarios I was presenting to you, they are all basically economic decisions. Economics is economics always compares the benefits of one decision with the benefits of another decision. Like, say for example, as we were discussing, that should you be investing more in the girls' education or boys' education, economically that has to be a very different kind of calculation. Like, if you are investing 1 million rupees on boys education and 1 million rupees on girls education, what kind of return are you going to get from the 1 million rupees education of the girls, and what return are you going to get from the 1 million rupees education of the boys? And if your returns are higher for the boys or the girls, like, you should be deciding accordingly that you should be investing more in girls or you should be investing more in boys. So it is this is what economic decisions are. Of course, we cannot compare this with pure economic decisions, because education has got social benefits, religious benefits, and this is the duty of a parent to give education and training to their children. It's not, you cannot avoid it. Like, I was asking from the economics perspective. From the economics perspective, it's a very clear-cut thing. Like, say for example, being father, if you feel your religious duty or your social duty or your ethical duty or your moral duty to give education to your children, that is a different story altogether. If you are doing it because of ethical compulsions, religious compulsions, social compulsions, you will not compare the economic returns of your decisions. But if you are not forced by the this kind of religion or social society or morality, you will definitely be taking economic decisions, and that's what basically many people do, and that's what something you can do. So economics basically and interest rates are really important in deciding about these things, that should you be investing or should you be investing at one place or another place. Now we see the concept we see that the concept known as the yield to maturity is the most accurate measure of interest rates. Now, the very important question is how interest rates are measured. How you measure interest rates. It's not an easy variable to calculate. And as I have been telling you for a very long period of time, long in the sense, since the beginning of this particular course, that economics is a decision-making science. When you make or you want to make a decision, or your economics teaches you how to take good decisions, how to decide about your things, how to decide about that what you have to do and what you not have to do. So this is something economics is about a very important very decision making. So for that decision you need to know the value of your alternatives. Like, say for example, I was telling you that what is the value of making investments on boys and what is the value of making investments on girls. Now, if you somehow are able to calculate the both values, then you can only compare the returns on the education of the boys with the returns on education of the girls. So this is what something, and that is what something like, if say for example, if I ask you this question, how do you think interest rates should be calculated? Now, what is your answer for that? Why, how interest rates are calculated? How do we calculate interest rates? देखिए, I was asking you this question that how interest rates are calculated. Just don't look at this slide right now. I'm just telling you something like, extra to this slide. And now basically, first of all, we have to be very clear on the definition of interest rate. Can anybody give some basic definition of interest rate? What is the interest rate? You might define interest rate in a way that interest is basically is cost of borrowing. Whenever you borrow money, you have to pay interest. Like say, for example, you go to the rent-a-car service, you take a car on rent, you pay charges for using that car. You rent a house, and when you rent this house, you pay the owner of that house for the use of that house. Similarly, when you get money, when you take money of someone, you basically you decide about you use that money and you pay for the use of that money. Now this is the something that you do, that you basically use that money and you just pay for the cost of using that money. So in that way we can saw that it's a cost of borrowing money. It is a cost of money. It is a price of money. जब आप कपड़े खरीदते हैं तो आप कपड़े की प्राइस पे करते हैं. किसी कपड़े की प्राइस कैसे पता लगती है कि किसी कपड़े को कितने पैसों में बेचना है? किसी कपड़े की प्राइस कैसे डिसाइड होती है?
सर उसके कॉस्ट के थ्रू के कितनी कॉस्ट लगी है उसके ऊपर, तो फिर प्रॉफिट रखकर प्राइस डिसाइड करते हैं.
ओके, और कोई? Anybody else?
Quantity and quality.
Quantity and quality. Okay. Anyone else? How do we decide the price of clothes? Think price of clothes or any price of anything depends on the demand and supply of that particular product. सप्लाई में ये डिसीजन आ जाता है. सप्लाई का जब आप कर रहे होते हैं तो आपको पता होता है कि आपकी कितनी कॉस्ट आ रही है. तो आप जाहिर है कि अगर मिसाल के तौर पे मेरी कॉस्ट आई है 100 रुपए, तो मैं उसको 80 रुपए पे सप्लाई नहीं करूंगा. तो इसी तरीके से अगर आप एक डिमांडर हैं और आप ये समझते हैं कि इस चीज की वैल्यू जो है वो 100 रुपए होनी चाहिए, आप उसको 120 रुपए पे नहीं खरीदेंगे. तो कहने का मकसद सारा का सारा ये है कि डिमांड एंड सप्लाई से प्राइस डिटरमिन होता है. तो इंटरेस्ट रेट इज आल्सो डिटरमिन्ड टेक्निकली थ्रू द डिमांड एंड सप्लाई ऑफ मनी. Through demand and supply of money, the demand and supply of money is like, say for example, how much money is being supplied and how much money is being demanded. Who supplies money? Who supplies money?
Central bank, sir.
Yes, central bank supplies money. And who demands money?
People, consumer, business.
Yes. Like if I ask you about your demand, how much money you demand?
As per our needs, sir,
How much do you
to
need?
consume. So last month monthly expense right now it would be around 40,000. I need.
Like say for example, if you just give a basic definition of demand for money, how would you define that demand for money?
Sir,
Demand for
whatever I need.
Gigi.
Needs and wants,
Need to
fulfill my needs and some few of my wants which I can.
तो आपकी जिंदगी में सिर्फ 40,000 रुपीज की डिमांड है.
सर राइट नाउ अगर पूछें तो उसका तो कोई करते ही नहीं है, सब हो जाता है.
40,000 में सब हो जाता है.
हाँ आराम से.
अच्छा, वेरी गुड, वेरी गुड. आप सिंगल होंगे ना अभी?
हाँ ना सर.
और जब शादी हो जाएगी तो फिर आपको कितने पैसे चाहिए होंगे?
सर वैसे तो पैसे भी बॉन्ड्स की तरह ही है सर, जितने ज्यादा मिल जाए उतना अच्छा.
अच्छा, कितने मिलने चाहिए? आपका क्या ख्याल है? आपकी डिमांड क्या है? कितने पैसे होने चाहिए आपके पास?
सर मैं नहीं रखता, मैं तो बोलता हूँ मल्टीप्लाई होता है.
मतलब कितने मल्टीप्लाई हो जाए? लाख हो जाए, 10 लाख हो जाए, करोड़ हो जाए, 50 करोड़ हो जाए, 50 अरब हो जाए, कितने हो जाए?
टेक इट एज करोड़.
10 करोड़. 10 करोड़ विल बी इनफ.
हाँ सर इट वुड बी.
अच्छा, ऑलराइट. What about others? How much money you demand? Yes, ma'am.
Unlimited, sir.
Unlimited. You want so much money.
डिपेंड सर, डिपेंड करता है कि किसका एक्सपेंडिचर कितना है.
तो एक्सपेंडिचर के हिसाब तो बढ़ता, एक्सपेंडिचर तो आपको पता है इनकम के साथ साथ बढ़ता रहता है. तो जब आपके पास कम पैसे होते हैं तो आप 500 रुपये वाला सूट खरीदते हैं, जब आपके ज्यादा पैसे होते हैं तो 5,000 वाला खरीदते हैं, उससे ज्यादा होता है तो 5 लाख वाला खरीदते हैं, उससे ज्यादा होता है तो 50 लाख वाला खरीदते हैं। तो एक्सपेंडिचर्स तो बढ़ते रहते हैं साथ साथ। देखिए डिमांड फॉर
तो
मनी
लेकिन मार्केट में मिनिमम चीज कितने का मिल रही है उतने पैसे तो होने ही चाहिए, लाइक उससे ज्यादा फिर जितने भी हो तो वो फायदा है।
ऑलराइट ग्रेट। देखिए मैं आपको थोड़ा सा
सर
आई वाज जस्ट जी बोलिए सर से बाहर।
सर अगर इकोनॉमिक्स के उसमें देखा जाए तो हमारे
जी
पास अभी मनी जो है वो लिमिटेड रिसोर्स है हमारे पास, और हमारे पास जो हमारी वांट्स है बहुत ज्यादा है।
हम्म
तो हमारी वांट्स तो सर कभी खत्म ही नहीं होंगी, वो बढ़ती ही चली जाएंगी एज टाइम पास।
हम्म
तो हमारे पास मनी तो लिमिटेड ही रहेगा।
ऑलराइट। देखिए मनी की डिमांड का मतलब थोड़ा सा मैं आई वाज जस्ट लाइक trying to make you understand this so that I was probing with you. Like by the demand for money we mean how much cash do you want to hold. Demand for money का मतलब होता है how much cash do you want to hold. Whatever income you get is not your demand for money. Like say for example, if a person earns 100,000 rupees per month and he needs cash of say for example 70,000 rupees to meet his daily expenditures or other kind of requirements, so his demand of the money will be 70,000 rupees. And what he will do with the rest of 30,000 rupees?
सेविंग
कीप इन बैंक।
Yes, he will put it into the bank.
सेव
Yes, he will put that into the bank, and he will basically, and that is not his demand. Demand for money always means the cash that you want to hold. All right. So if you actually have got so much money, you will not keep all of money at home, or you will not keep all money as a cash. You will just make investments with it. So what happens with the money that you get is used for two purposes. Either you make consumption or you just use it as a cash for the daily purposes, or you basically make investments with it. So the demand for money is this, the demand, how much people demand cash and how much money is being supplied in the economy, that determines the interest rates. There are so many other ways of determining the interest rates. I was telling you the most basic way of telling you the interest rates, and this is another way of calculating the interest rates on different kinds of instruments. Like say for example, I was telling you that this is a concept of yield to maturity. Yield to maturity. Do you understand the term maturity? By the maturity we mean the age of the instrument. Like say for example, if one instrument is issued for 1 year, its age will be 1 year. If an instrument is issued for 5 years, its age will be 5 years. And what do you understand by yield? What do you understand by yield?
पैदावार
Like
किसी भी चीज की
the benefit of that particular,
ऑफ अ कमोडिटी।
not commodity. देखिए yield का मतलब वो आप लोग perhaps you are just comparing with the yield per acre yield or something like that. It's not like here by the yield you mean that how much return you get on the instrument. जब आप एक बॉन्ड खरीदते हैं तो बॉन्ड पे आपको क्या मिलता है?
इंटरेस्ट।
जी, जो उसकी yield है, ये वो आपको कमा के दे रहा है, उसकी पैदावार ही आप समझ रहे हैं. लाइक से फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर आप जिस तरह, अगर इफ यू आर थिंकिंग और यू आर कंपेयरिंग विद द पर एकड़ यील्ड और यू आर जस्ट कंपेयरिंग विद द पैदावार ऑफ अ बिजनेस, तो ये एक इंस्ट्रूमेंट की पैदावार है. समझ रही हैं आप बात? तो द यील्ड टू मैच्योरिटी, ये yield to maturity, the yield to maturity, like if you can understand both of these words individually, you can perhaps connect them together as well, is what financial economists mean when they use the term interest rates. We discuss the yield, how the yield to maturity is measured in this particular chapter, and we shall be looking at that how this yield to maturity is measured on different kinds of instruments. Okay. We will also look at the bonds interest rates. That does, we also see that the bonds interest rates does not necessarily indicate how good an investment the bond is, because what it earns, its rate of return does not necessarily equal to its interest rates. देखिए एक बात और समझिएगा कि इंटरेस्ट रेट और रिटर्न में फर्क होता है. There, the interest rates and returns are not synonymous. the interest rate that you get on a bond or the interest rate that you get on an instrument is not equal to the total return. And how is that? Why is that so? I'll be letting you know in a while, like at the end of the lecture. Finally, we shall be exploring the distinction between the real interest rates and the nominal interest rates. And we shall be looking at that, how the nominal interest rates are determined and how the real interest rates are determined. All right. So we will be talking about them in a while. Okay, now this is the basic idea of this particular chapter. We are going to learn how interest rate is measured. Very important concept, very important concept, and this concept is going to be used for all the kind of analyses that you are going to do down the road, and this is a concept of present value. Will anybody from you can anybody from you explain the concept of present value? What do we mean by the present value of some future income? I want to consider you a scenario, like say for example, if you go to the ice cream shop, you ask that how much is the scoop. The person tells you that the scoop is 200 rupees. Like if you want to buy one scoop of ice cream, you will have to pay 200 rupees for one scoop. Now, what you do, you ask him to get it tested. Like, say for example, you ask him for the taste. You ask him that, can you give us some amount of ice cream to taste? And when you taste this ice cream, say for example, when you put a spoon in your mouth, what do you do? जब आपके मुंह में वो आइसक्रीम जाती है तो आप क्या करते हैं? At that very moment.
डिसीजन लेते हैं कि
जी वेरी गुड, डिसीजन लेते हैं, एंड उस डिसीजन में क्या कंपेयर कर रहे होते हैं आप?
whether we like it or not.
All right. और कोई?
Is it worthy to spend on that one scoop of
Very
ice cream or not?
Very good, Roha. That was something that I was hoping to listen to from you. You compare the price that you have been asked for the ice cream with the taste of that ice cream. When you are just put that spoon in your mouth, you just you are tasting, you are sensing, and you are evaluating the quality, quantity, I'm sorry, not the quantity, the quality, the taste and everything of that ice cream, and you are comparing with the price you have been asked to pay for. Like say for example, you compare that does one scoop of ice cream worth 200 rupees or not? If you enjoy that ice cream and if you think that the taste that you are getting worth more than 200 rupees, what do?
सर लेकिन ऐसा भी तो नहीं होता ना कि हम टेस्टर चेक करने के बाद फिर छोड़ दें, अजीब सा लगता है, लाइक
नहीं हम
छोड़ के नहीं जाते।
ये क्यों नहीं छोड़ के जाते? आपको अच्छी नहीं लगेगी, आप 200 रुपए का स्कूप खरीद लेंगे?
सर किसी और फ्लेवर में ले लेंगे, मतलब कुछ
सारी एक बार टेस्ट करोगे?
नहीं सब टेस्ट कर लेंगे आप, मतलब सब टेस्ट कराते हैं वो आपको, एक स्पून सबका टेस्ट कराएंगे। अगर टेस्टर्स अवेलेबल हैं तो जिस तरह आप एक परफ्यूम खरीदने के लिए जाते हैं तो आपको वो कहते हैं कि भाई इतने का परफ्यूम है, वो आपको उसका एक टेस्टर जो है वो देते हैं, आपको एक उस पर लगा के देते हैं या आपके हाथ पे लगाते हैं या कुछ आपको देते हैं, उसको एक फील देते हैं, तो आप कंपेयर करते हैं। अगर आपको अच्छा नहीं लगेगा तब भी आप खरीद लेंगे उसको, अनुजा?
सर परफ्यूम और फूड की बात अलग अलग होती है शायद, आई थिंक।
अच्छा, परफ्यूम मतलब परफ्यूम में भी तो यही कि उसने आपको परफ्यूम लगाया लेकिन आप लगा दिया, आपको अच्छा नहीं लगा, लेकिन फिर भी आप खरीद। आइसक्रीम में भी इसी तरह है। देखिए आइसक्रीम ये इकोनॉमिक डिसीजंस हैं। इकोनॉमिक डिसीजंस में अच्छा लगना या बद अच्छा, इकोनॉमिक्स में अच्छा बुरा कोई चीज नहीं होती है। इकोनॉमिक्स में होता है कि आपको इससे फायदा है या नुकसान है। आप जो 200 रुपए एक स्कूप का पे कर रही हैं, क्या ये 200 रुपए आइसक्रीम का एक स्कूप वर्थ करता है या नहीं करता है? अगर आपने वो टेस्ट किया और आपको लगता है कि ये वर्थ करता है तो आप खरीद लेंगे आइसक्रीम, और अगर आपको लगता है कि ये वर्थ नहीं करता तो आप नहीं खरीदेंगे। ठीक है ना? ये बेसिकली ऑफ कोर्स हमारे पास जी नहीं बेसिकली ये एक्चुअली देखिए इकोनॉमिक्स जो है वो बड़ा एक क्रूअल किस्म का साइंस है। उसमें दैट इज समथिंग वेरी मच लाइक दैट डिपेंड्स ऑन कॉस्ट एंड बेनिफिट। ठीक है ना। इस तरह जब मैंने आपसे सवाल किया कि आपके पेरेंट्स को आपके ऊपर इन्वेस्टमेंट करनी चाहिए कि नहीं करनी चाहिए, जाहिर एक सवाल एक अजीब सा है, लेकिन बहरहाल ये कि ये इकोनॉमिकली एक क्वेश्चन बनता है कि अगर आपके ऊपर इन्वेस्ट करेंगे तो क्या फायदा मिलेगा उनको, आप दूसरे बच्चों पे इन्वेस्ट करेंगे तो क्या फायदा मिलेगा। जिस तरह बहुत सारी फैमिलीज हैं जिनमें कुछ बच्चे उनके ज्यादा स्मार्ट होते हैं उन पर ज्यादा स्पेंड करते हैं, जो कम स्मार्ट होते हैं उन पर कम स्पेंड करते हैं, जो सबसे कम स्मार्ट होते हैं उनको मदरसे में भेज देते हैं। तो वो बेसिकली जाहिर है कि वो एक अब इसलिए भेजते हैं ताकि वहाँ पे कुछ पैसे नहीं लगेंगे और उनको कुछ मसला नहीं होगा, क्योंकि उस पर इन्वेस्ट करने का उनको फायदा नजर नहीं आता। इकोनॉमिक डिसीजन मेकिंग है। तो बीइंग पेरेंट जाहिर है कि आपका आपके लिए आपको दिल जो है वो हर एक के लिए उसी तरह दुखना चाहिए जिस तरीके के लिए आपके पास एक दूसरे बच्चे के लिए हो रहा है। लेकिन एनीवे द थिंग इज कि ये दिस हैपेंस। तो अच्छा, इसीलिए इसी तरीके से अगर आप कंपेयर करें कपड़े की कीमत को, लाइक आप जाते हैं कपड़े की दुकान पे और वो आपसे ये कहता है कि कपड़ा 1000 रुपये मीटर है। व्हाट डू? यू टच दैट क्लॉथ। और जब आप उसको टच कर रहे होते हैं तो आप अगेन व्हाट डू यू डू? While touching, what do you try to feel and what do you try to decide?
सर डिसाइड करते हैं कि लेना है कि नहीं लेना, इट इज वर्दी और नॉट।
That is again a question. Of course, that is again the same thing, that you basically decide that whether that worth 1000 rupees per meter or not. But what happens with the financial investments? What happens with the financial investments? Like say for example, just forget about the financial investments for the time being. Think about planting a tree. Now you are sowing a seed and you are planting a tree, or say for example, you are planting a small tree. How would you compare the cost that you are incurring on tree with the benefit that you are going to get from the tree?
सर उसकी प्रोडक्टिविटी पे हम लोग देखेंगे ना कि हमारी कॉस्ट इस पे आ रही है उतनी या फिर हमें बेनिफिट मिल रहा है।
देखिए वो प्रोडक्टिविटी तो जब देगा ना जब वो बड़ा होगा, उसमें फल लगेगा। ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि बड़ा होने से पहले वो जो है वो खराब हो जाए, जल जाए, हो सकता है ना ऐसा।
सर हम रिस्क लेते हैं इसका कि मतलब हमने जो लगाया है उसके बाद वो बढ़ेगा तो फिर हमें फल मिलेगा, ऐसा अजम्पशन करके हम रिस्क लेते हैं एक छोटा सा।
अच्छा रिस्क लेते हैं, नहीं छोटा सा नहीं बड़ा रिस्क है। जी रोहा आप बताइए।
So is it worthy on long-term basis or not? Like, is it fruitful for us or not?
How would you decide about it? देखिए you are not, देखिए जैसे आइसक्रीम के एग्जांपल में you were tasting आइसक्रीम and you were deciding about it. कपड़े के एग्जांपल में you were touching the cloth when you were deciding about that whether this cloth worth 1000 rupees per meter or not. जब आप कपड़े को टच करते हैं तो आपका एक हाथ जो है वो एक मीटर बन जाता है, जो कि ये जज करता है कि क्या इतना ये वर्थ करता है कि नहीं करता है। लेकिन अगर आप इस तरह की कोई ट्री लगा रहे हैं या फाइनेंशियल इन्वेस्टमेंट कर रहे हैं, देखिए इन्वेस्टमेंट में क्या होता है कि पैसा आप आज लगाते हैं, पैसा आप आज लगाते हैं, लेकिन इसका फायदा कब होगा?
Like future में.
फ्यूचर में होगा। देखिए प्रॉब्लम क्या होती है फाइनेंशियल इन्वेस्टमेंट्स की चीजों में कि पैसा आप लगाते हैं आज की तारीख में और फायदा आपका होता है फ्यूचर में। अब आपने कंपेयर करना है आज की कॉस्ट को फ्यूचर के बेनिफिट के साथ। द प्रॉब्लम इज दैट यू हैव टू कंपेयर टुडेज कॉस्ट विद फ्यूचर बेनिफिट्स। ये बड़ा एक मुश्किल काम है। देखिए ये बहुत मुश्किल काम है। आइसक्रीम को टेस्ट करना आसान है, कपड़े को टेस्ट करना आसान है, लेकिन आज की एक्सपेंस को कल के प्रॉफिट के साथ कंपेयर करना मुश्किल है। तो अब उसके लिए क्या किया जाए? व्हाट यू कैन डू अबाउट दिस?
Research before investing.
जी we were discussing about that you want to make comparison between the money that you are spending now and the benefit that you are going to get in the future. So I want you to read this concept of present value and try to read from this perspective, that we are comparing today's expenditures. Like say for example, you are putting money in a bank today and the bank is promising you to pay after 1 year. So the benefit is going to come after 1 year, and money that you are depositing with the bank is today. All right. So how can we compare today's investments with future returns? All right. For that, we understand the present value concept. So please try to read this present value concept, and we shall actually continue that in the next class.